start in any second now. We see Magnus is adjusting his camera. Jan, he looks focused. Benjamin, I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, no, I'm excited for sure. It's, again, the rematch of the 2021 World Chess Championship, so this one might also be a little bit personal for both of the players. Also, again, these players are from the same generation. They're both born in 1990. As we speak, by the way, we're off. And again, like, they've played in World Youth Under 12 Championships.
They go way, way back, and Jan actually had the lead in their head-to-head history until that World Championship match when it was a one-sided victory for Magnus. We have a Petrov, and for this match, I'm wondering, is Jan going to try to be more solid, or is he going to bring his chaotic brand of chess, which has scored him some fine victories in his career, but also can backfire if you play a little too loosey-goosey?
Yeah, I think he's going to try to stick to his style, try to play aggressively, especially with the white piece against Magnus. He wasn't quite able to do so in the match, but that is also very impressive from Magnus's part, that he doesn't let Jan into his A-game, so to speak, and he turned the game into more grindy, slow positions. But let's see what we have here, Robert. It started out as a Petrov, but it turned into a bit of a French exchange. Pretty boring so far, but we know how Magnus can work his magic here.
We see Magnus, he's eating his lunch, so he's just taking it step by step, but I agree with you. The reason why we call this position a bit boring, so to speak, is there's no pawn tension. Only one pawn has been traded per side. We haven't seen anything of note in a symmetrical structure, so let's see how this one develops. But I wonder, Benjamin, do you think it's match strategy for Magnus, not just to get his meal in at the start, but to sort of see what Jan wants in the opening stages?
Yeah, and I think it definitely makes sense to see what Jan wants. Jan has been sticking to his guns. He played the Petrov defense. He played that in their World Championship match as well. I'm not too impressed so far with Magnus's opening choice. I think Jan is doing fairly well. I mean, Magnus has these slightly more active pieces. However, this knight on c3 can sometimes be slightly misplaced, as it's currently restricted by the pawn on c6. Queen e2, I like the move by Magnus, as h6 would invite a sacrifice over here. The knight of a nice move by Jan, and look at the clock, Robert. Jan does this very well. He's already up on time, and perhaps Magnus might be struggling a little bit with this, because normally he's the one putting pressure, and Jan often is the one putting pressure on him.
And look at this position. The rook gets to the open 5. The problem for Magnus is he can only take one piece at a time, and if you take the knight on f6, black for sure will not take back with the g-pawn. I think that knight on d4 will slide back to f5, and you're just trying to keep your king as safe as possible. So maybe white will remain up a pawn, but it's pawns on separate sides of the board. Black has an extra pawn on the d-file, white has 2 extra pawns on the king side, and that creates a dynamic imbalance that should help in black's chances to hold if white is not able to crash through against that black king.
Yeah, we see Magnus falling quite far behind on the clock here. He's dropping below a minute. I think he's still in very good shape here. He's got a dominant position, but you got to be careful, especially against Jan, who's so extremely who is so extremely tricky when you're in time pressure. Because 96, wait, but Robert, that was the mistake we were talking about. I think now Jan is doing quite fine, actually.
I'm not sure why Magnus went for this, because look at these pawns on the king side. Now you have the split f pawns and a loose h pawn that's under attack. He goes in with his queen, but suddenly look at the eval bar, saying black is actually the side for choice. Knight e4, forcing those queens off, and how could black be worse in this endgame? Double exclaimed, deserved from Jan because that way his king is safe. Benjamin, this is starting to turn around.
Yeah, great move by Jan. He's offering the trade of queens. I don't think there's a good way for Magnus to get out of it, and he does go for the queen trade. The pawn on h3 is hanging out. These pawns are weak. Bishop f5 is an option, or knight c4. Attacking this pawn, and also, Robert, after knight c4, you turn to go knight d2. And look at the clock. Magnus down to 18 seconds.
And that's a very good response of king to g2 because the knight could take b2, but the rook would have slid to b1 to win the b7 pawn and get some activity. So very good find from Magnus. But I'm looking at the clock. He's down to 10 seconds. Benjamin, he's got to move.
Yeah, bishop f5. Great move by Jan, not taking the pawn. Knight at e2. Alright, so Jan can just take this pawn over here now and get a pretty significant advantage. I guess Magnus is playing good knight e4. I don't know. He's in real trouble here, Robert. Perhaps Jan can start off hot in this match.
Didn't look like that at first, but if he grabs these queenside pawns, I would take on c2 as you said. Now black has this unopposed d-pawn passer. White's pawns, they're gross. Double F and isolated H, they can't create a pass pawn very easily. This looks like Jan Nepomniachtchi's game. He needs to pressure Magnus on the clock.
Yeah, and that's what he's doing. He takes on the e-pawn. He doesn't do so. Now Magnus goes b3. The position might be manageable here, because where do you actually go with the knight?
This was a mistake from Jan. He should have pawn. Instead, he's backtracking, but look at Magnus pushing for an a5, followed by a6 was a threat, and that's why black played a5, but that's a long-term weakness. If that bishop slides to c7 at the right moment, a5 could be a target.
But look at the clock. Magnus down to 4 seconds. Jan has to be doing well here, but let's see if he can create some problems for Magnus. I think Magnus, objectively, he should be doing fine. Like, it's opposite color bishops. These pawns are blocked over here on the queen side. It's difficult to make use of them, but the clock...
barely getting his moves off. I mean, he's 2.9 seconds after that move. You gain 1 second of increment, everybody. I think bishop f4 was a good choice. That bishop go to e3 or to g5. It will block the black rooks. And now Magnus might play b4 himself and just start trading off pawns.
Yeah, so let's see how Jan is going to try to do this. Rook g6 check, I guess, will be met with bishop to g5. He goes rook to c8. Perhaps aiming to set his pawns in motion, but for now you can't, as it will hang the pawn on d5. And with the move bishop to g5, Magnus is actually creating that threat. Oh,
rook takes
he
c5.
edged the pawn.
Yes, because it wasn't available a move ago, because rook g6 would have been check. There's no check against the white king. The rook on c8 is loose. Now Magnus, he can go from a position where he was worse to potentially one where he can try to outplay Jan, although with bishops of opposite color, this realistically should just be a simple
But h5 was a great move there. h5 again, instead of because you cannot take. Okay, now...
Yeah, he's setting up h5. Now h5 is a big threat.
Right, so king e8 therefore by Jan. Okay, so now we have h5. A couple moves to like Jan just takes it. Okay, king g3. This game, probably a draw, but it can still go either way with both players getting a long time.
And here comes the f-pawn. I said they weren't good, but f-pawn and f4.
Oh, rook g4!
Rook g4 takes g5!
Wow, what a blunder. And rook takes f5 is just a game, because you can... Wow, and Jan Nepomniachtchi